Hello everybody. Thank you for coming this morning to the Understanding Kids strand. So first we're going to hear from Laura from TrendBible, who'll be talking about navigating the fast forward effect in childhood, and then we'll hear from Barbie and Nyasha all about well-being and the internet.
Good morning all. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your attendance. I'm going to dive in. As Meg just introduced, we're here to talk about navigating the fast forward effect in childhood. My name is Laura Jolly-Yan and I work with creative agency TrendBible. In this role, I look after consultative projects, working with clients to their pain points and their needs. Let's just dive in. So before I get started today, the agenda, we're going to have a brief introduction to TrendBible, just explain why we're here, what we're all about. Then we're going to examine the problem. What is the fast forward effect in childhood? And then what does this mean for the future of children's entertainment? So to begin, just a little bit of background about TrendBible. We often get asked, what are trends? Why are trends relevant to me? How can I actually implement this into my market? But TrendBible identify the opportunities of tomorrow. We are with a global network, and leading brands come to us for answers to better understand their network and to make more commercial decisions for their industry. So we forecast the future of family life and beyond. We look at all examining factors that are change and development within a child's world. This might be play, learning, growth, eat, create, sleep, everything. So why are we here today? The body of work I'm about to show is investigating the fast forward effect in childhood. We are aware that the window of childhood is getting shorter. This stat on screen is definitely very punchy. Over half of children start to lose their sense of wonder by the age of 6. In a poll of 1,000 mums and dads with children aged 3 to 6, we found that 51% believe that their little ones' fascination with the wider world started to decline before they got anywhere near double digits. To further that, 94% believe that their key role is nurturing their little ones' curiosity and joy to make new discoveries so they can reach their full potential. So let's examine what the behaviours and attitudes are that have contributed to this. The world around us is changing. Exposure to an onslaught of world issues and on a more personal level formed from a combination of financial worry and the increasingly early onset of puberty, unlimited access to social media, and now the adoption of AI, the fast-forward effect is challenging parents and caregivers to prepare their children for adulthood sooner. Childhood has become heavily intertwined with the seriousness of the modern world. We've seen storytelling experiences leaning towards moralistic, purpose-driven tools to help children navigate the complexities of life. Generation Z is often referred to as the last generation of kids who've experienced a semi-traditional childhood due to the undeniable expanding influence of the internet during the upbringing. So let's talk about a kid-centric mindset. How do we react to the fast-forward effect? How do we nurture that in a way that benefits the child and puts them very much in the driving seat? A kid-centric mindset anchors a demand for a storytelling reform that will appeal to the inner child emerging. How can we speak to the children of the future in a way that puts their preferences in the centre? So this is the formula that we've put together, a new age of kid-centric storytelling. The 3 themes I'm going to talk through today. We begin with rebellious hope. We're then going to dive into the rise of the kidult. And our last theme is wonder and awe. So let's start with the rebellious side. The rise of rebellious hope and creativity is becoming an increasingly valuable tool for childhood storytelling. Even escapist narratives are underpinned by themes of resilience to help children untangle the good, the bad, and the unpredictable moments in life. Fear of imminent catastrophes have left a parental urge to overprotect and shelter children. However, parenting in hindsight approach highlights the negative impacts that this may have on our children's mental and physical state. So let's dive into the rebellious hope trend. Applying this kid-centric mindset that I've spoken about is all about championing a boundless creativity. Culturally, we have entered a sea of sameness in a very risk-adverse market. It's time to unlock potential by breaking down boundaries and limits on creative storytelling. So narratives here are all about pushing boundaries of comfort and taste. Think hyper-personalization. Think uninhibited fun. And think self-expression. Unlimited self-expression really sits at the heart of this. Whilst we can be achieved through pattern, shape, colour choices in our storytelling, the winning attention here really goes to customization, adaptability, and open-ended storytelling opportunities. How can we put the child in the driver's seat and increase interaction? We wanted to share this case study with you today from a campaign from Crayola, connecting adults back to their childhood creativity and really learning what it meant to them. I urge you to look up the full video if you search Crayola's Stay Creative, but I will warn you that it is a little bit of a tearjerker. It is an emotional watch, but it's a really powerful way of engaging this multi-generational attitude towards creativity. Now I'd like to speak to you about embracing mesh. This emphasises the need to tap into our emotions when building creative narratives. So embracing mesh stands for mental, emotional, and social health. A growing number of toy designers and marketers are embracing mesh as a play type that teaches children how to problem solve, adjust to new challenges, and really advocate for themselves, creating a strong foundation for a kid-centric mindset for the future. Now look into our second theme, the kidult. Enter a new dawn of ageless play and entertainment. A kidult is an adult who enjoys doing things that are traditionally intended for children. Analysts last year looked at a study where 1 in 4 toys and games bought last year were actually for teenagers and adults. Multi-generational households are also on the rise. So we're going to see a radical reimagining of parenting styles, values, and priorities as a new wave of caregivers look at parenting through retrospective understanding. The Impacts is not highlights a celebration of childlike curiosity for all ages. We feel it's now the time to challenge new archetypes. Why is the rise of kidults so irrelevant for the narratives for children's storytelling? It enhances the senses for the whole family and also adds that healthy dose of nostalgia into the storyline. Aim to broaden your demographic for greater ageless engagement. This is a great quote here where we're looking at how families are consuming more content together. According to the study in 2023, really focused on family co-viewing around streaming services by Future Today, 94% of parents said that they have been co-viewing in the last 12 months. And to further that, 86% responded that they plan to watch more shows together, really saying that pandemic was not just a once-off occurrence, that coming together really does have benefits for the whole family. Now, in the next slide I'm going to show you, we go straight into a movie, a very small little clip, and I'm going to let you see what you think about the emotion, and then we're going to talk about it.
Oh, come back in! They're not moving anymore. Actual tear room down my face.
Bloody hell.
I don't know if all of that is actually able to be understood because the emotions have taken over. What we look at here is comedians and podcasters Chris and Rosie Ramsey. They are watching the highly anticipated last episode of Bluey, The Sign. It shows how heavily invested parents and caregivers have become in the show's narrative, talking about the season finale. The pair were shocked themselves of how the emotional impact that the storyline had them feeling. They had them in fits of laughter and also fits of tears. This is true kidult engagement. To further my conversation on Bluey, we have references from the episode called Fairy Tale. Bandit, the father, is telling his kids, Bluey and Bingo, all about the 80s as if it was a magical, mythical world where anything goes. The references to nostalgia have both Bluey and Bingo in a state of awe. They can't believe what their father is telling them about this wild world. It's really curated this blend of humour and sentimentality, leaving the early years in stitches and older generations engaging on a deeper narrative. Adult themes are peppered throughout with clever quips on nostalgia and humour. Even just looking at cassette tapes, children of today won't even know what these are. So what better way to challenge the fast forward effect in childhood, but increase the engagement from the whole family? Now, it's not only childhood nostalgia that we see as a key driver here. This is definitely one aspect, but watching kids shows such as this can be self-affirming for adults who feel that they missed out on seeing their identities on screen growing up. Some fans even say that Bluey has helped them heal generational wounds. Now into our final theme, wonder and awe. While learning and purpose-driven narratives have been extremely important, in an effort to slow down the fast-forward effect, there is a widespread yearning to bring wonder and awe to the forefront of storytelling. Playful escapism, moments of joy, a feeling of freedom and pure enjoyment away from the everyday. How can we uplift and how can we make the audience feel good? Narratives should reach to activate a sense of playful wonder and curiosity. This quote here from our senior trend editor, Danica Morris at TrendBible: "There is a need more than ever to inject moments of wonder and awe into the everyday." When it comes to childhood, really moved into more of a realism in recent years. We really need to look at how we can move away from that slightly to be able to nurture this sense of awe. So we've highlighted this desire for re-enchantment. Consider how much children missed out during the pandemic. That really fuels this feeling for a longing for magic, wonder, and a deeper sense of connection with the world. When it comes to childhood storytelling, escapist themes have been overlooked. So a desire for this re-enchantment alongside our kid-centric revolution that I've mentioned is really helping to bring these storylines back to the spotlight. Underpinning next generation fairy tales, the desire to instill a strong sense of resilience in the background of this as well. In response, narratives that evoke a strong emotional reaction are key. We want to address the good and the bad, the light and the dark, the delight and the disgust, and the laughter and the fright. So how can we really create a balance between those? To finalise, we've just identified 3 action points around our 3 themes. So beginning with rebellious hope, as I mentioned, it's all about breaking through that sea of sameness. We need to champion a new wave of storytelling. And our kidult, understanding that appeal of nostalgia, really infused with sentimentality. This really is fueling not only the kidult in us, but also how that really increases interaction for the whole demographic. And finally, wonder and awe. It's all about exploring innovative ways across storytelling to bring wonder and awe back to the lives of both children and caregivers. A final slide for me If you'd like to hear more from us at TrendBible, you can connect via our QR code here on screen. And if you quote CMC 2024, there is a free trend report here for you to take away. It is called Dark Enchantment, The Age of Awe, which is a continuation of our series on the wonder and awe. Thank you for your time today. And this is also a way to connect with myself. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. We're very excited this morning because we're very interested in our joint subject. So thank you, Laura. I think you raised some really important points that actually tie in very well with what we're going to be presenting as well. My name's Barbie. I'm not wearing pink, but obviously I normally do. And I run Family, Kids and Youth, which I started, I think, about 22 years ago. We're based in North Kensington in London. We moved in, actually, to our current offices just 3 weeks after Grenfell Tower. So we kind of work in a community very locally that has quite a lot of issues, as you can imagine, and we work quite closely with the local community. We also work, of course, not only across the UK, but also across Europe and in the US, and in Asia as well. So we do have quite a sort of wide range. But the research we're talking about today is our well-being and the internet study, which is really something that we launched in 2018. And it's quite interesting because we realised back then that the children were embracing really then the internet. But there were lots of issues back then about their mental health. That was really important to find out what the internet was doing for children's well-being. So we launched the study, and we've done it this year. So what we're going to actually do is compare the two, what happened back then and what happened now. So this year we did our sixth wave. And we did 8 online friendship groups. Nyasha, who's with me, did some of them, along with George, who isn't here because he's dog sitting for his mum this week. So he couldn't make it. He's a bit cross about it, actually. And we carried out 8 online friendship groups with children aged 10 to 16. And we're going to be showing you some clips from some of the groups that we did. We also did a nationally representative survey of 1,036 children aged 7 to 16. And we did that just 8 weeks ago. So this research is very, very recent. So I last stood here in Sheffield at the Children's Media Conference presenting the findings from Wellbeing in 2019, which amazingly was 5 years ago, obviously pre-COVID. And we just thought we would actually check back into that time and now and see what the differences are in terms of not only what children are doing online, but also what their level of well-being is. So actually to start looking at some of the things that children are doing online currently, Nyasha is going to take you through some of the findings.
Thank you, Barbie. So if we start with the 7 to 10-year-olds, we can see that, same as 2019, the most popular app is YouTube at 72%, although this is down from 82% just 5 years ago. Netflix, however, has slightly increased in this same time period, and WhatsApp is down this year, down from last year, but still much higher than it was back in 2019. And TikTok is also up to 25%, and this was just 6% back in 2019, so there's quite a big jump. And going on to the 11 to 13-year-olds, WhatsApp stands at 72%, which is up from 54% back in 2019. And TikTok has also increased, so it now stands at 53%, which is a large increase from 17%, which was just, again, 5 years ago. And for the 14 to 16-year-olds, WhatsApp, TikTok, and Netflix have gone up considerably. Their popularity has continued to grow over the last 5 years, which has really pushed Instagram and Facebook out of the top slots for this age group. And just as a reminder that 13 is the youngest age allowed to go on YouTube and TikTok, and it is 16 for WhatsApp. So now looking at who is using these certain apps, we found that girls continue to use social media more than boys, and this includes platforms such as Snapchat, FaceTime, and Pinterest. And boys are more likely to gravitate towards platforms such as Facebook, Discord, and Lego Life. And now looking at gaming, we have found that only 2 games from 2019 are currently in the top 5 for 2024, so that is Minecraft and FIFA. And we've really found that 14 to 16-year-olds are now the least likely group to be playing video games. Instead, it is the 7 to 10-year-olds who are more interested in partaking in this activity. And while Minecraft does remain popular, of course it is Roblox that is now the game that is being played most often. So we've also found that for the first time it is girls who are more likely to play the most popular game, which is Roblox, rather than boys. And they are also more significantly more likely to play games such as Animal Crossing, Candy Crush, and The Sims. And boys, again, are gravitating more towards Minecraft, FIFA, the ever-popular Fortnite, and Call of Duty. That's what they're doing online. We can definitely see a shift within the last 5 years, but how does this fit in with children's overall well-being? So let's hear from some children themselves.
And your mental health is what's happening in your mind. So you have to be careful, make sure that you're keep your mental health healthy, and make sure that you're not always viewing bad stuff and not making yourself feel sad by perhaps viewing social media, sometimes some of the videos that you see.
How you feel, and making sure you're making time to care for yourself. And so if you're caring for other people, just making sure that you're spending time to care for yourself and making sure that you're healthy.
Lots of teenagers suffer with their mental health, and I think compared to adults, adults don't take children's issues seriously, because they might not have a job. But even children in primary school might be feeling really down, and adults sometimes may not understand that.
Unfortunately, I guess I've never been in a bad mental state or anything like that, but you can see a lot of people, they're stressed out and depressed, especially in school nowadays.
The mental health system needs to be upgraded a lot, because there's so many people that have now got anxiety and depression because of everybody else's comments in school. And even the teachers applying pressure to the students. I feel like that can cause so many mental health issues, and they're just not shining light on it, or they're not seeing the teachers won't let you see someone about it. Do you know what I mean? Or if you told someone, they'll just be oh, and then shrug it off your shoulder.
So we can see that happiness levels have declined. You can see the blue columns represent 2019 and the green columns represent 2024. And this year for girls, it is still family followed by friends that make them happy. And for boys, it is just slightly different. Boys' happiness levels are led by video games, then family and friends. And the overall top worries, these do remain the same. So again, it's tests and exams, schoolwork, what other people think of them, arguments with other people, and then worrying about family members. But overall, the levels of worries has interestingly declined since 2019, and that's for both boys and girls. So, however, we are getting closer here to the notion of not having a smartphone, especially if we look at younger children between the ages of 7 to 13. Reliance on devices has risen significantly for these age groups. And we can see that there is a rise of 19% for 7 to 10-year-olds and 10% for 11 to 13-year-olds who agree that I can't go anywhere without at least one internet device, and a very small decrease actually for the oldest age group, which is the 14 to 16-year-olds. And for the statement, I talk with my friends online more than in person, we did find there was a rise of 22% for 7 to 10-year-olds and 10% for the 11 to 13-year-old group. But this number again has decreased slightly for the oldest age group here. We've also found that the use of smartphones at bedtime has increased for all, but it is increased significantly for those between the ages of 7 and 10. So 5 years ago, it was just 16% of 7 to 10-year-olds who said that they took their scent. And these numbers do remain relatively similar for the 11 to 13-year-olds and the 14 to 16-year-olds between 2019 and 2024. So now we're going to look at online safety, and then I'm going to pass back over to Barbie.
Like, you can make it so that people can't, like, friend request you.
There's a lot of incidents that happen where there's younger people that are trusting people on the internet. They think are younger children their age, but they turn out not to be.
Yeah.
I think it's important that there's more safety for them because it's not always safe on the internet when you think it is.
You can get those requests in Instagram, can't you? It's like of random people, even if your account's private.
I like gaming. Spend a lot of my time doing that, to be fair, and just talking to people online as well. Quite fun.
I use Fortnite a little bit, but
That's a good one.
I use my microphone to talk to my friends.
Yeah, I play video games daily, pretty much. I don't always go on open voice chats, but it is fun to randomly talk to people that you don't know. Of course, you've got the old Fortnites. I've used that a lot when I was younger. Talked to a lot of different people on there. Still have a few people. I have a friend in Norway who I've only known from Fortnite, and we exchanged numbers.
On Roblox, there's a thing called voice chat.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have I think it's 12 plus to enable it, and basically it's like a microphone, but you can talk to whoever's in your server, let's say.
Yeah. Everyone can see your messages on Roblox because it's like all the people on the game can see what you're messaging to your friend, unless you can private chat it, but if you don't, everyone can see it. And also it's not like where you can do like, and if you like try and say anything bad on Roblox, it will like tag out the message and you won't be able to say anything bad.
Recently, I've been playing Helldivers 2 a lot. They've got a voice chat system on there. I've met about 3 quite decent people that I've talked to every now and then.
Right, so you can see that age restrictions aren't really counting there. Thank you very much, Nyasha. And so parents are talking to their children about online safety, but it isn't probably quite enough. And young people's wish to have internet safety support from their parents has seen a massive increase since we were here 5 years ago. And this includes various things that I think we need to just be very aware of, which is talking about internet safety. 73%, nearly 3/4 of children now want that. Over half, 56%, want rules in place about what they can do online. And again, over half, 55%, want parents to make rules about what they can do online, which mostly parents aren't doing, it seems. And again, over half, 55%, want their parents to look at what they've been doing online, which was absolutely non-existent a few years back. And half would like their parents to block certain content. There's been a massive increase in actually children wanting to have increased support from their parents, which I think is really quite significant and something that we need to sort of think about quite carefully. Unfortunately, there has been a continued decline in schools talking to young people about internet safety, particularly around cyberbullying, talking to strangers, and reporting. I think it's really important that we point out that teachers have been under a lot of stress over the last 3 years. We work in schools all the time. We were in a school on Monday in the East End of London, and the children were particularly, there were quite a lot of neurodiverse children there, and it was really tough for the teachers, and they really did do their best. And perhaps they should start thinking about talking to kids about this, because basically they want to teach them and educate them. So I think it's something that we need to be very, very aware of. I think it's important to see, and we've got lots of little sort of lines there, so let me just tell you what the lines mean. So the red line, not talking to strangers, that's declined from 77%, teachers talking to children about this, 77% in 2019 to 65% this year. The green line, talking about cyberbullying, has similarly declined from 84% to 63%, so it's gone right down, nearly 20%. Talking to pupils about not giving out personal information, that the yellow line, decreased from 71% to 59%. And being told how to report something frightening or upsetting, 49% this year. And then finally, I think it's probably worth thinking about this. With the decline in explaining how to report content, only 31% of young people say they would always report upsetting content. And we've looked into this a lot, and it's partly because they don't really know how to do it. And then when they do it, if they do it, which they don't very much, but if they do it, they don't get any response. So then they think, well, is there any point? So they either don't know how to do it, or if they do it, they're not getting any response. And if young kids don't get a response, they don't bother, they move on. And they carry on looking at really, really very difficult content. And I think this is really quite worrying as well, so I'm sorry to depress you on a morning like this. But I see upsetting things online has increased this year to 43% from 36%, which is actually quite a big rise. And that's particularly amongst 11 to 13-year-olds. And then also, children agreeing with it's easy for children to accidentally come across things on the internet that aren't meant for them has increased from to 79% from 74% in 2019, and this is particularly for 14 to 16-year-olds. Okay, so moving on. There's been a limited impact on the likelihood of children speaking to strangers, apart from Snapchat, which 14 to 16s are likely to do. And this is especially on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and for 14 to 16-year-olds, Snapchat. So again, a little bit worrying about that. So if I go back to when I last stood here in Sheffield at the Children's Media Conference, 5 years ago, pre-COVID, we can see how this conversation has changed. This report is from the esteemed Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health, which concluded there's not enough evidence to confirm that screen time itself is harmful to child health at any age, making it impossible to recommend age-appropriate time limits. Can't quite believe that people were saying that 5 years ago. And also this, from the University of Oxford, analysed 12,500 interviews with children and adolescents aged 10 to 15, and concluded that child happiness and children's social media use had trivial effect on their level of happiness. But of course, we now know that post-COVID 2024, with a rapid increase in children being given smartphones, laptops, and tablets, access to the internet is having quite a profound effect on children. And it really fits in very much with what Laura was saying earlier, this sense that children are maybe becoming a little bit too grown up a little bit too soon. And, you know, have they lost that playfulness because of the sort of things that we're doing? Ofcom has looked into eating disorders, cyberbullying, suicide, self-harm, and a lot of those reports were published in March. And also the work that we did for them, which is children looking at online violence. And that kind of illustrates, I think, some of the things that children are unfortunately seeing online. If we switch to now, we can see a huge difference. This is from the Department of Education in February, which said government is thinking about a crackdown on mobile phone use in schools. And we know that that's happening a lot. I'm sure that you know that children have been banned from using mobile phones in France for some time, and in many countries indeed. And also that perhaps the ban brought in by St Albans in Hertfordshire, where all the schools in the area have agreed that their children will not bring their mobile phone to school. I think it's important also to see this, which is probably quite interesting. The search by parent kind of 2,496 parents of school-aged children in England showed that more than half believe that the UK government should introduce a ban on smartphones for under 16s. And of course, I'm sure you remember that the teachers in St Albans in Hertfordshire are banning smartphones in schools from next term. There are no laws about smartphones in the UK yet. The French government brought a ban of smartphones in schools in 2018. But none of the 10 young people, 9 out of 10 young people from the NSPCC's Online Safety Youth Task Force think they should not have a ban on mobile phones. So it's really complicated, isn't it? I mean, you know, what do we do? What do we do as adults? What do we say as parents? What do we say as teachers? I think this is an interesting one as well. Young people are uncertain about banning smartphones at home, especially for those 12 and over. A third of 7 to 10-year-olds think they should be banned for children under 11 at home and at school. But funnily enough, only 13% of 14 to 16-year-olds believe they should be banned at home and at school. So to finish off, let's just hear from children telling us about being safe online.
My parents have before. It doesn't come up a lot. I think after we get the first talk, we don't usually get it anymore. But because we've got school to do it as well, I think it sticks in your mind and like you remember it.
Obviously, like the private option on accounts, like you can make a private. And obviously, like you can block people if like something is going to if something's happening.
I think it should be around 10 or 11 when you get your first phone, because when you go off to secondary school, you have to go by yourself.
With WhatsApp, I think the age should go down because it's just another like messaging thing. 16, that's even after 12, and you're probably by the time you're 16, you could probably be having Snapchat and have a bunch of messaging on there.
Yeah, a lot of people that I know, including myself, I don't really think the age limit affects us because we know like all about like safety and we know like the rules.
Yeah, I'd have to say 12 to 13 rather than 11 because I feel like 11 is a bit too early because you're still very impressionable and you're not even in secondary school yet necessarily.
If they take away our social media, the amount of teenagers that will be so moody and grumpy is actually unreal, and parents won't be happy with it because they know that that's what we like and they're just kind of taking it away. So maybe they should just change the age restriction on some of the apps.
So, as you can see, we left the last word to a 12-year-old. And it is confusing, and we know from our research for Ofcom that we carried out mostly last year, just how shocking the extent to which children are seeing extreme online violence is, even children as young as 8. We carried out workshops with 247 children across the UK in Belfast, Glasgow, Wales, Cardiff in Wales, and also in Newcastle, Sheffield, Huddersfield, and Essex, which is kind of a rural area, and also London. And it really was quite shocking. We thought we knew because we're talking to children all the time about what they're doing online, but it really was shocking the extent to which the violent content they're seeing, and it's easily reached as well. You can find the report, by the way, on Ofcom's website or on our website as well. So just to summarise that, there's currently a lot of angst amongst children and young people. Messaging and video sharing apps, which have grown in popularity, may not be helping this anxiety. So we're not sort of particularly saying, there is the levels of anxiety have risen. Is it actually being caused by what they're doing online? Family and friends make children the happiest, as they did in 2019, but rates of happiness has declined. School tests, exams, etc., really are a prime source of concern for children at the moment. Together with anxiety about what they see online, and a reliance on devices is at an all-time high. But so is the level of upsetting content that they're encountering online. Girls are now spending more time online playing games, and we're wondering whether that's a sort of an escape from other online content for them, because that really has increased significantly. And while parents are talking to their children about staying safe online, as we can see, children really do want more information, not just from their parents, but also from their schools. And I think in terms of parents, it might be that the parents themselves don't know how to keep children safe online. Parents have quite a lot to do as well. Many children are concerned about their privacy online, but lack sufficient knowledge to keep themselves safe. And interestingly, schools, as you have heard, are reported to be talking to them less about staying online now than they were 5 years ago. And while over half of 7 to 10-year-olds, rising to 2/3 of 14 to 16-year-olds, agree smartphones should be banned for under 11s, this falls considerably for banning smartphones altogether. A third of 7 to 10-year-olds think they should be banned for all children under 11, interestingly, at both school and at home, and a quarter of 11 to 13-year-olds believe they should be banned at both school and at home for all children under 13. So it's basically, if you're 13, you think anyone 12 or under should be banned. And if you're 16, you think anyone 15 and under should be banned, which I suppose is fair enough, and that's what kids do. And perhaps, so not surprisingly, 13%, 14 to 16-year-olds, think smartphones should be banned for schools and home for under 16s. So tiny amount there. Right, that's a lot. Sorry for all the statistics I've thrown at you so early on in the morning, especially after football. You've all done very well, thank you very much. Laura and Nyasha and I would love to hear any comments and any thoughts you have on the two quite controversial things we've perhaps brought up.
Thank you, that was really interesting. I had two questions. The second might be more a comment. One was, did you ever distinguish between children wanting smartphones at home or school? Because you kept combining the two. And I know a lot of schools, more and more, where the smartphone's banned at school, but they still have one at home. And then my second question is, what do you all think about the parent-led smartphone-free childhood campaign, where they're suggesting groups of parents get together in years 5 or 6 to not have a smartphone before they're 14 or whatever?
Yes, we did look at that and that slide, but we actually hid quite a few slides, believe it or not, even though we showed you so much stuff. We did record that very much so, and basically it's as I said, if you're sort of 13, then they should be banned for anyone under 12. If you're 15, they should be banned for anyone under 14, and it goes like that, because they think that they're, and I think it actually fits in with what Laura was saying about how grown-up children feel they are and how responsible they feel they are. And, we're not saying they're not responsible and they're not grown up, but they're not as grown up and responsible as we think they are. And so there are lots of campaigns going on like that. And my concern, and I don't know what everyone else thinks, is that children will find a way in. As you know, most children know passwords. They know their parents' passwords. They get into things very easily. You've seen how much what children are saying and even talking about quite openly, sites that they're absolutely not supposed to be on, but they're on it. And, they know how to get on it. And that's, I think, really, really worrying. So I think it's a really good campaign and I completely understand it. but I somehow feel it won't work. And I don't know what everyone else thinks. What do you, as a mum?
Yeah, as a mum, I think it's really about balance, because, as you know, creating that, as you say, that's almost like creating a sense of excitement by the ban, perhaps. But I still do support what I've read about the campaigns, but I feel that everything we're talking about is also about striking a balance between the weird and the wonderful, and making it feel exciting but not too scary. And I think we just have to really, as I talked about, applying that kid-centric mindset. It's about making sure everybody within that family, household, or the greater community is able to sort of strike a balance with it as well. I think that's what's so key here.
Hi, I'm just wondering, did you ask children about what they think about their parents' use of phones, smartphones?
Yes, so this was one of the questions that we asked, and a lot of the children said, well, my parents on their phone a lot, but I'm not allowed to be on my phone, so that doesn't make sense. And some of the children do understand that their parents are working, so they do need to be on their phones, but we did have quite a few comments saying, well, I'm not allowed, I have rules, but they're on their phone a lot. And I think one comment we had from a child was, oh, my dad won't tell me how much time he spends on his phone, because you can't check, and some of the kids do know, like I do like to gatekeep that from their children as well.
Do you put any much significance in the downward arrows in the older age groups, the people who are actually maybe looking as if they're rejecting their phones? Do you see that as a perhaps a positive in this horrible arena?
Yes, absolutely, and they mean it quite sincerely. Because they've kind of had enough. They want to move things on. And I think, it fits in with what Laura was saying, people, as they get older and more mature, they actually can see culture going on. And I think, developmentally, if you think of that kind of what we'd call middle adolescence time, when you're sort of around 15, 16, it is a time when you actually begin to think, actually, I'm not a child anymore. I'm not an adult, but I'm not a child. And they really begin to sort of review all their behaviour. And they also become a little bit more, I suppose, secure about having their own opinions. Because up to then, there is this snitch culture that, children often talk about. And if you don't do what everyone else is doing, then you're really, you're sort of almost excluded from the group, if you like. And we've actually come across cases of that happening to children, which is deeply upsetting, of course. So, yeah, no, absolutely. I think that there will be that wave of older children thinking, actually, let's move on to something else. And we were talking about this yesterday, weren't we, Laura? And we were saying, this is a great opportunity for content. We could be doing a lot of stuff for children, almost telling children in a sort of really fun way about not being online, and actually bringing that out much more. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, something I wanted to just add to that is when we're looking at the sort of more tween market and what the developments are with that, there is that growing trend with de-influencing, and people are sort of starting to repel against all of these, YouTube videos about more and hauls and sorry, I mean that my accent doesn't say that very well. Like a shopping haul, not a haul shop. you know what I'm saying. Trying to sort of reject those norms. And when I talked a lot about that sea of sameness culture, that influence culture has had quite a negative effect on the sort of development of some of the teens and tweens. So we are starting to see a low current of how that is starting to sort of kick back a bit now and saying, actually, I don't really want to look like everyone else, and how can I go against the sort of wave? And we do feel that, over the last sort of few decades has been this like sea of sameness, and how we actually celebrate those subcultures again. And we're going to start to see more of that coming through, hopefully.
I get a bit confused about the vague sort of notion about banning phones from schools. In that sort of my son, quite rightly, the school has banned mobile phones, but we all want them to have their phones travelling safety, and it is very vague. It's an easy thing to say, but it's much harder to sort of implicate. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So yes, and I think the difference is between a smartphone where they can get on the internet and just a phone where they can actually, like old phones did, where they can still contact and say, "Mum, I'm all right," and when they're probably in the sweet shop or something, "I'm all right. It's just I've missed the bus," so they can actually still communicate, and that's the thinking behind having the parents sort of campaigning about this, that they can still have a phone where they can contact, but they can't actually go online. So that's the difference. It's about going online or not going online.
Can I add to that? Yeah. But I think it's a really valid point, because as you say, you can't just come out with a statement like that without having anything to sort of actually be prepared for it. It's like everyone has to drive electrical vehicles, but there's no charge points, or we're not ready for change in some ways. And I think this, when we start to see these bans coming through and the confidence building with it, and if we see direct results from, the benefits that might be, schools need to adapt. There needs to be either locker systems or, ways that the safety of children to and from school is being addressed. But then we're able to actually look at how does the school need to adapt to that? What measures need to be put into place? So while these are feeling like they're emerging stories, we're not prepared for it yet. We can't just say, that's that done. We need to do a cold turkey on any of these things. There has to be storage and, really thought about the safety of children on the walks and the journeys that they do as well. So I think it's a really good question, and something that, how do we respond to that, and how do you actually get schools to be prepared for that change?
I was curious about the results in France after the smartphones were banned, and if there have been studies around the effects post-banning smartphones in school.
Yes, I mean, that's in itself very interesting as well. And it's such a debate, isn't it? Because children often sort of, think that their lives actually are based on that. Can you take it away? They live so long. I think what that, she was 12, the little girl who sort of ended that film, she said, well, couldn't it just be the providers? Does there have to be a ban? Do we have to not be able to do anything on smartphones? They're so used to it. It does seem unrealistic, doesn't it, to actually do that?
Hello, I've got a question about the fast forward effect. In terms of media, what kind of bit of childhood do you think is being squeezed by it? Is there less space for like tween content, or is it like the early years that we're seeing shrinking in terms of what children want to watch and engage with? Is that something that you can answer?
No, it's a really good question, and I think when we start to look at those sort of more nuances into the demographics, we can probably learn a little bit further and lead into that more. And that's something we would certainly do at TrendBible, is dive a little bit deeper into, on a sort of bespoke project, like what age range would that start to sort of affect. But we know from our research that the tween market is particularly difficult, because it's really something that isn't, it almost seems like a bit of an anomaly in so many industries, where people just don't know what to do in that sort of department. So that's what I'd certainly say would be one of the sort of bigger, that's probably one I would identify first, and that would be a sort of certain watch out. But in the study that we'd referenced, it was between 3 and 6 where they started to say that's when the wonder was already, an issue. So I think that's a really big watch out there as well.
I just want to say how much I appreciated your existence, really, from the second presentation. Obviously, we work a lot in content that is, given to our audience primarily on, digital devices and on screens. And so sometimes it feels a little bit outside of our own interest to look a little bit deeper into the darker sides of it. And so I'm going to ask a question that implies that I don't appreciate and agree with your work, but I really, really do. But I just wanted to ask, in your research and your time with kids, did you find that increased exposure to the internet was having any positive results? For example, I was watching those kids talk about their mental health and about, taking time for themselves. I think I would have had those anxieties as a kid, but I wouldn't have had the vocabulary or the tools to articulate that in a way that was helpful. And their self-awareness of that almost seemed like it was an instinctual response to kind of help amend the issues that I wonder if might not have been there without exposure to the internet. And the second part of that for all of you was just, what's the ratio in terms of what we can do to kind of start etching back some of the negative effects between limiting use, but then also embedding content with, these ideas of wonder and awe, and trying to kind of dilute the badness on the platforms and stuff, and taking that responsibility into the content that we make.
Thank you. And I think in answer to the first half of your question, I think, yes, absolutely, there are a lot of positive things. And I think actually during COVID, it probably really helped a lot of young children because, at one point they couldn't go to school, they couldn't go out. It's just weird, wasn't it? And I think there's no question that it helped for them to actually be talking. Unfortunately, some of the restrictions online, meant that they occasionally were talking to people, who they didn't know, who were perhaps, and that's where it sort of just went wrong. So no, I'm not being. I've always been very for it, and I've always argued. In fact, 12 years ago, I published something about how wonderful the internet was for kids. But I think it's just got a bit too far, and the restrictions aren't there. I think, and I'm sure Laura might agree with this. I think there's a huge market for tech providers like you to actually do stuff that, in a fun way, puts out those protective, ideas, because they don't know how to protect themselves. That's the real issue here. And I think, parents don't know, children don't know themselves either. So maybe there's a big market.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I think it's that level of transparency and really talking to children in a way that it is a narrative they understand. But as you can see, coming up with really advanced dialogue a lot of the time. So it's making sure that we can kind of be on their level, respect. But I think there's something that within, again, it's really nice to see those examples of children actually talking, because I think there's something about breeding positivity within those communities. And, it sort of feels like when there's a lot of negativity around, how do we sort of get people to feel a little bit silly and feel a little bit like fun again? And it's only going to happen with a sort of a spread and a breed within their communities, and how that can sort of foster. So I think it's sort of starting small and building momentum within the children themselves, because they're going to be the voice of this. But I think when we talk about wonder and awe, it's like it's okay to be a little bit silly. Everyone's trying to be too cool, and it's just really helping people along with that. I think that's a good place to start.
The wonder and awe, the age was 6, was it? Like as early as 6, they're experiencing that. And then just to link the two issues, I guess, is like, what age are these kids getting smartphones and tablets? Because, maybe CBeebies and early kids' TV is okay for all, but then once those devices are introduced, that's when those things collide.
But the age, we in our research, we go down to 7 and they're getting it, definitely. But we do know that actually 3-year-olds are being given smartphones. And I think, just this morning, actually, I walked past a little girl in a pushchair. She was probably about 2, and she was watching something avidly, and I'm sure it was fantastic. And her parent, I smiled, and the parent smiled back at me. And I was thinking, yeah, that's really nice for the parent, because she's probably got, her mind on something else. So it's entertaining. And we see it all the time. But it's just, how far does it go, I think? So it's getting younger and younger is the answer.